So I'm back with another Xperia video for you Sony ninjas out there, and I know you guys have been waiting for my Sony Xperia 1 Mark III content, and unfortunately something terrible and devastating and heartbreaking happened to my Sony Xperia 1 Mark III. And I actually caught that fateful moment on my Ring doorbell, and I have the footage, and if you guys are interested in seeing what happened to that phone, well, stick around to the end and I'll share that video with you. But that's not what this video is all about. It's all about the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III. This phone is for those of you that want that Sony quality design and robustness, but don't necessarily want to drop £1,000 on the latest flagship. And for the reasonable price that Sony Xperia 10 Mark III comes in at, Sony have thrown in some quality parts. And of course, there's going to be some areas where they've had to cut back spending in order to keep the price low on this device, and I'll go through those as we get through the review. But what I really want to do in this one is highlight the key strengths of the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III, because I feel a lot of the other reviewers have really thrown this one under the bus. So I guess it comes down to me to defend it. You ready? Let's go. So the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III's unique form factor is a big deal. Sony have stuck to their guns and given it the 21:9 cine-wide aspect ratio on the display. And this is the same aspect ratio that they use on their flagships, and it gives this phone a few advantages. One being for watching movie content that's actually shot in 21:9 aspect ratio, so that's pretty much most movies. And with the latest Sony phones, including the 10 Mark III, you're going to get that full cinematic experience without those horrible black bars at the top and bottom of the screen. So if you're a movie fan, you're really going to appreciate this phone. And what's going to make it even better is if you plug in some wired headphones, because this phone does have a 3.5mm headphone jack, which means you're going to get high-res audio and zero latency. And if you must insist on using wireless earbuds or headphones, the 10 Mark III does support LDAC. Which might also be a Klingon swear word, but what it actually is the best method for transferring audio from the device in the highest quality. And of course, all of the other usual codecs are supported as well. And the second big advantage that this phone has over other phones in the same price category is its narrowness. This is just 68mm wide, which means it's really easy to hold and use with one hand. Because it's slimmer than other phones, most people will be able to reach their thumb right over to the far side of the screen if they're typing on the keyboard, which means you're not going to have to use your other hand to support it to reach those further away keys. And it weighs just 169 grams, which makes it very easy to wield. And yes, it is a tall display, but you also have Sony's Side Sense feature, which allows you to put it into one-handed mode. So if you want to reach the top of the screen with one hand, you can do that as well. And here's a couple more advantages of a 21:9 aspect ratio screen. When you go split screen, you'll actually get two perfect squares. So whether you flip it from vertical to horizontal, the ratio will stay the same. So you're not going to get any warping or anything like that when it comes to aspect ratio. And because it's got that longer vertical axis, if you use your phone a lot for social media like Instagram or Twitter and this kind of stuff, you're going to have more on that vertical, which means maybe a little less scrolling. And if you're a gamer, because you've got that wider field of view when you're actually playing, you actually have the tactical advantage, because you might actually see people before they can see you on the left and right edges of the screen. So that's going to give you a gaming edge. And what makes this even better, if you're a PlayStation gamer, you of course have got the Sony PlayStation Remote Play feature, which means you can hook up your control pad to it and play your PlayStation games over Wi-Fi when you're at home. So the display is definitely one of the highlights of this phone, and it is a 60Hz panel, and I know a lot of the other reviewers have criticized the 60Hz panel, saying there's a lot of other phones in the same price bracket with faster displays. But it's important to note 60Hz is the same as the iPhone 12 Pro Max, and a lot of people seem to like that phone a lot. So I don't think it's a big drawback to the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III. And 60Hz does have its advantages, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So the display is a 6-inch Full HD Plus OLED with HDR support, so you will get the deepest black and vibrant colors and great contrast. And Sony say they've put all of their Bravia TV expertise into this display, and it certainly looks like it to me. It doesn't have Sony's creator mode that mimics the cinema grade monitors like the flagships do. However, it does enhance video playback with a video image optimization software. And I've seen some reviews where people say they had to switch it off because it looked terrible. And it's definitely worth mentioning, this is about a month after all of those early reviews. So maybe some of these updates that I've had have improved these features over time. So maybe that's why I'm seeing different results. So the video optimization software actually extends the colors and contrasts on the fly. So whenever you open a video app or it starts playing video on screen, it will automatically switch to this and enhance your video playback. And like I said before, it looks really nice to me. I was watching the latest Spider-Man trailer on here. It looks so crystal sharp and the colors look fantastic. All the skin tones and everything look amazing in my opinion. So I definitely see this as a great feature. And I'm sticking to my guns when I say the display is one of the highlights of this phone, even though a lot of other reviewers have said the screen isn't bright enough. Now listen, for me, I find it bright enough. If you're in direct sunlight, you can still see it. I think people are just complaining because they're comparing it to very, very bright screens that you can get on other phones. But you know something? There is an advantage to not having an incredibly bright screen or an incredibly high refresh screen, and it's battery life. And that takes me nicely on to the second strong point of this phone. I even heard GSM Arena say the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III has class leading battery performance, even though their review kind of wrote it off in pretty much every other area. But I have to agree with their battery life performance statement. It's got a 4,500 milliamp hour cell, which is a pretty big battery for a phone this small. It does support 30 watt fast charging, although Sony do throw in a very slow charger in the box. And I think they've done this for a good reason, because on their website, they actually state that in 3 years time, your battery health on your Sony Xperia 10 Mark III will still be pretty much as good as the day you bought it. And that's because it's charging slow. When you rapidly charge a phone every day, eventually the battery starts to degrade. So you've got Sony's battery care software working some magic here. But of course, if you do want to buy yourself a 30 watt charger, you're going to get faster charging speeds. And before we get into the triple shooters on the back of this device, let me run through some of the key things you need to know about this phone. The front and back of the device is coated in Gorilla Glass 6, which is one level below the current flagship Gorilla Glass Victus. There are 3 colors available in this. Right here, I've got the black one, but it actually kind of looks gray. And when the light hits it from certain angles, you get this kind of blue tint. So I actually like the finish on this. The frame, however, is plastic, but it feels nice in the hand. The fingerprint reader is recessed on the right-hand side of the phone. And despite what people have been saying about it, it's actually really difficult to push this by accident, in my opinion, because you actually have to push it quite firmly for the fingerprint to register. And of course, the fingerprint reader does double up as the power button as well. The volume rocker is satisfyingly tactile and clicky when you use it. And there's even a Google Assistant button on that right-hand side, which is actually really flush to the edge of the phone. And I haven't found myself hitting that by accident either. So the plastic frame is one area where Sony have cut the cost. And here's another one. It's only got a single front firing speaker, but it's actually impressively loud. So you won't be disappointed with it, but it would have been nice to have had the stereo sound on this one, but it's respectable for the money. Now, when it comes to the chipset, the heart of the system, it is a Qualcomm Snapdragon 690 silicon, and it's backed up with 6 GB of RAM. This is a mid-range tier chipset, and it does support 5G. And yes, of course, there are more powerful processors out there for the same money. And I do have a very good suggestion for you if you need a bit more speed and power in a similar phone for more or less the same money. But honestly, if all you need the phone for is to do regular daily tasks like social media, listening to music, watching movies, doing emails, or maybe even a little bit of light gaming, the Snapdragon 690 will absolutely crush those tasks, no doubt about it. And then it also supports 5G. So if you're paying for a 5G network, you can get the highest data speeds possible. And one of the great things about the Snapdragon chip is it's very energy efficient. Again, going back to that battery life, this entire package actually just makes this phone really, really energy efficient. So now let's jump into the camera tech. Let me show you some photos and videos taken on this device. And it's important to note, this is a month after those early reviews, and there's been some pretty major updates. So let's see if Sony have improved it. Maybe we're going to see better image quality than those other reviews. So check this out. So in my opinion, this is actually a solid phone and it's worth the money in that mid-range category. And also, if you buy it from Sony, in some cases you will get a free gift of some headphones or something like that. So keep an eye out for those deals. But here's where the smart money is, in my opinion. If you're okay with renewed phones, the Sony Xperia 5 Mark II comes in at about the same price as this new. So basically all of the areas where this phone was criticized, that phone kind of patches those. But I would only suggest you do that if you're okay with having a second-hand phone. If you want something brand new, definitely consider the Sony Xperia 10 Mark III and keep an eye out for those deals on the Sony website. So if you're still here, you probably want to know what happened to this phone. Let me show you. The Gorilla Glass Victus was no match for the concrete outside my house. The good news is I still will be making some Sony Xperia 1 Mark III content. I'm just gonna have to wait a bit for a replacement to show up before I can do those videos for you. I will do them, so make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications for when those go live. And I appreciate you guys for supporting the channel. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. And if you do, you will be one of the finest subscribers known to man. And I will see you in the next one, so don't be late.
Focus.